Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Get Heavy Podcast on another beautiful evening here. Tonight, Shimer won't be joining us. He's out of town doing work or vacation, or I don't know what he's doing, but he can't make it. So I have my buddy, Mr. Larry White, Oxnard legend, musician, drummer for Aggression, Stalag 13, Dr. No, you name it. He's been in it. He started 1,600 bands already since we started this podcast. Anyway, how are you, man?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me, Craig.
Thanks for being here. We were talking earlier, but how it's been very nice hanging out with you, getting to really know you. We did a romantic bike ride, so that was cool. Shared some cigars and some good stories, and I realized how small Ventura really is. When we were talking.
Yeah, that's the funny thing, that we rarely get to hang out in a setting besides the nightclub or the big venue or whatever it is, and then we're not like so close that we like go to each other's houses yet. It's happening, but
It will.
bike ride and really just chat and kind of touch on your background, my background, who we know, where we've been. It was really fun, man. That was super cool, just to realize me growing up here, the people that I know are connected to you, and I came home and I shared. I said, man, I'm like kind of freaking out. This is so cool.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's so easy, like when you are a musician, to make those and I'm not like, not everyone's fair weather, but I say that in a respectful way. Like I know 200, 300 people by name and passing, you know what I mean? And it is very rare that, you really, my group of friends is about 2 people, you know what I mean? So when you really like get to know someone, outside of your circle that's technically in the scene or whatever, it's always so nice because everyone has so much in common, especially in such a small town like this. Everyone's played with each other. We're all sluts, you know what I mean? Is what it really is.
I've always called myself a drum slut, and I still think I'm that way. But yeah, you're right, because we've spent so much time together in the nightclub setting or the venue setting or the, punk rock bowling in Vegas setting. But those are just they're short, intimate moments where we're enjoying why we're there. We're watching bands. We're listening to music. We don't really sit down and go, hey, so you played with this and you started in this field and in this instrument, and so we really have never done that. And so that's why since I had heard about the fucking Wrath and knowing John and your circle of people, realizing some of them are tied to my family, and just always was so impressed with the sounds that have continued from the 80s, when early 80s, when I started playing with it, and just so impressed. And I I love that fucking Wrath, and it just every time I saw you, I was just fucking Wrath, like like trying to get the bear to react, but you're just so humble. You're like, hey man, what's up? So we've never really just sat and been like, cool man, what do you do?
Yeah. It's weird because you can create like real friendships on these very short moments. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I always wonder too. Like, I've been playing punk rock and metal for 20 years. You got 40 in the game, dude. So like, how often is it that someone comes up and says something to you and you're all, no idea, dude?
Aimless self-promotion, metal.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. But I mean, I am constantly, 20 years, someone's like, hey, 10 years ago, like, do you remember this? I'm like, not at all. Don't remember it at all, but I'm real good at faking it now. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm the same. I've had so many people come up over the years and, hey, Larry, you remember this? And we did that. And I feel so bad. It's the first thing I think when they say, hey, remember me, Joe? And I go, do I owe you money? And I feel like, did I make off with your sister? And is this going to get really uncomfortable? But you're right. Absolutely. We spend a short amount of time, in the evenings with our music at mutual venues, seeing each other's bands, and to go deeper, it takes, a little bit of work. It's not always just, we're always all family, and no matter when we see who we see, like the 200 people that we all know, It's always like a hug and a what's going on, but then it's back to why we're where we are. So yeah, it's kind of cool to just actually, this whole pandemic has helped slow down so many people. It slowed myself down from what I do for a living, and now I'm just enjoying being able to kind of go, okay, we're not going to run out to a bar. We're not going to run, like, I'm supposed to be in Vegas today for punk rock bowling.
I know, man. And that's I've seen so many posts all day. I should be in Vegas right now fighting with the hotel clerk about my bags or whatever. It's like, oh
Yeah.
man, and it's a huge event. I mean, I've actually never gone, and Scheimer is constantly harassing me about it. You know what I mean? Because I'm not a festival guy. It's not so, I don't want to be out of my mind for 5 days or 4 days or whatever. But I mean, I really was gonna go this year. You know what I mean? I was planning on going, and everyone is so bummed this weekend. You know what I mean? It might be the most bummed weekend in history at this point.
It is a weekend that's going to require some therapy, I think. It really is a spectacle, and it's something that, like I say, when I think we had mentioned it while we were riding. I started on the 6th year that they did it and kicked myself that I didn't go day one. But I think it was because I was misled, thinking it was kind of a hokey, weird get together. Because I remember they tried punk golf, and I went, I don't know. And then bowling, I'm not a bowler. But then once I actually went and had my punk rock bowling cherry popped, man, it just, you can't not want to go back. It's a lot of fun. If you don't like crowds, then that's probably not the place. But for the amount of music that they put on and host in Vegas, it's you can't do it all. There's so much, you just can't do it all. And as the years have progressed, now you kind of have to go. It's kind of like when we were at the Rebellion Fest. You want to see 500 bands, but there's literally the amount of days and the hours, and you can't split yourself, because literally there's 5 huge venues going on at once, and you're like, okay, well, Buzzcocks or GBH, or
Yeah,
it's kind
pick
of
your
like,
poison. I mean, every festival I've ever been to, I had the intention to see 20 plus of the bands, and you end up seeing 5, 6, maybe 7 if you're lucky. You know what I mean?
that's tough. That's a tough
Yeah.
one.
It's
But
just
yeah,
the hang, though. It's just the hang. The hang is so cool, and the way I mean, as far as I understand, the way they had it set up was, easy to manage and easy to do, as long as you got your reservations in on time and stuff like that.
yeah, and it originally started with the bowling, and then the music was a part of it. Now it's literally about the music, and the bowling they don't even mention. And then there was a book that they had put out. I think it might have been 2 to 3 years ago. I don't think it was last year. And they speak so much of music, and I think the cover of it, Punk Rock Bowling, is the only thing that mentioned bowling. So
Yeah.
it was really kind of interesting. But you got to admit, BYO has been around from day one, as when I was first joined Stalag and joined Aggression. BYO was one of the only labels. Then I'm not sure when SST kicked in, but there were so minimal, groups that were like going, let's produce bands, let's put them out. And so, like I said, they've been around a long time. They never gave up, and I'm really glad to know that they are there, and they're continuing, putting out music, promoting music, and yeah, it's a really cool thing. So everybody should go check it out.
I mean, the Stearns are, they've really put together a pretty incredible event. You know what I mean? And as far as I've always heard, the dealings with BYO have always been outstanding. Much like a Fat Records type of thing. I can't really think of anyone that's badmouthed them, or what I mean.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I know Scheimer's very tight with them both, so I hear a lot of the really good stuff about them. But it's just such a bummer that stuff like that's got to go right now, and it makes sense though, because I mean, as much as punk rockers are dirty scum fucks most of the time, you really don't, like, I don't think you'd have a lot of people there if they went for it. You know what I mean? You'd have probably half. You know what I mean? It might actually be a really nice festival if half the people showed up, but I just I would not, one part of me wants to be even at a place with 100 people shoulder to shoulder right now.
Yeah, the Stearns are good. They've never not been there for us. They've always been there for us. They've always given us what we've needed. Very accommodating, and yeah, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say anything bad about them. They really get what it takes to come from a grassroots uh, foundation, put together a label, put together compilation albums, put artists out on the road, be there, back them, and it's really kind of a testament to them that they've just always been who they are, and that's really cool. And then with the music too, I was thinking they were going to still have it, but I constantly go to their site to see what's going on for next year's venue, and they actually, I think the health department in Las Vegas kind of put the handle on them to say, hey, yeah, hotels are shutting down, the casinos are shutting down, you can't continue, So I think they have to fall in. And as
you have to.
As a respectable business, or an organization, you have to do it. Now, it probably goes against everything that is our roots as punkers, and we're against this and we're against. But that's one of the funny things that's going on out there. I see memes about how we're such anarchists against the system and against the man and against these things, but we're all falling in and listening right now. So it kind of goes against a contradiction. But I've had walking pneumonia, and I think I had this crazy flu at the beginning of the year, because when we came back from Japan, I got something that was just so bizarre. It wasn't a normal flu. I had hives that were moving around my body. I've never had a hive. I went to a dermatologist. They tested me for every environmental pollutant. Didn't react to a single one, but I had some crazy conditions and symptoms that most definitely I think I'd been there. Not that I couldn't get it again, but it goes back to, is it worth it? I think the general consensus is you just move the date as the Olympics got moved in Japan, as everybody's moving everything else. You just do it that way. You're not, and who knows what the liability is. I'm not a corporation, so maybe them being as large as they are, people buying tickets and attending a festival show, maybe there's a recourse. Some lawyer would be like, oh yeah, we could sue the BYO because they had the event, you got sick, you lost your loved one. I mean, it goes off.
It can go exponentially. When I was a very young kid, I was sitting in the front of the TV with my grandpa, who's very my grandpa is basically Al Swearingen from Deadwood. Like, he's just so gnarly. I've been called a cocksucker my whole life since I was like 3 years old. You know what I mean? But I remember sitting in front of the TV with him, and there was an advertisement for a lawyer on TV, which was you didn't see it. You know what I mean? And he goes right then and there, he goes, that's the end of this place right now. Letting these fucking lawyers advertise on television. You watch what happens. And then sure as shit, dude, I mean, 20, 30 years later, you can't wipe your ass without a lawyer being there. It's because they'll sue the shit out of you. Everyone can sue you. It doesn't matter what the liability might, even if you had all the liability in the world, you know what I mean? But so when did you guys come back from Japan?
We were there in August, I think it was August 20th. We landed 19th or 20th. We landed, and then we played until September 1st. Came home on the same day, which is kind of a mind blower because you're a day ahead there, so you're in the future. So we left there at 11 a.m. Came back to the United States the same day at 11 a.m.
It's a full 24 hours difference?
Yeah. So
wow.
I don't know, the time zone, it's I think 18 hours difference, but literally I couldn't wrap my head around how we had left Tokyo at like 11 a.m. on a Wednesday and got back to LAX at 11 a.m. on the same Wednesday. And I was like, I can't. This is like Back to the Future. I went right back to work, and I think I took a week off, but I went back to work, and I feel like I might have got sick right in December, and it was these flu-like symptoms, but not a normal flu. It wasn't a cold, and I just, like I said, there was so many weird, bizarre elements of it, plus the high thing. Like literally, my body looked like a leopard, but my hands would itch, and it was all up my arms, my chest, stopped at my waist. And then within an hour, they were gone, but then it was on my lower part. And my feet were itching, and I thought, I've never seen something come up and go away and went to the ER one Friday night going, I don't know, man, I'm kind of scared. Like, is this I'm like a leper now?
Well, dude, I mean, it's nice to know that basically you're patient zero and you brought it to America. So that's cool.
Hey, muzzle dog.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Stalag. You know,
and I want to say some of the guys in the band had some reactions too. Ben was sick while we were in Tokyo.
Ben's always sick. Look at him.
He doesn't look healthy all the time. But
he was. We had him on randomly a couple of weeks ago. They were doing a practice, and I was talking. He's obviously like a history major, you know, and I was asking him stupid questions about history and the correlation between the Spanish flu, and he gave us like a full history lesson. But man, that guy needs to eat some protein, you know.
Yeah, he's a smarty pants, Mr. Dissertation.
Yes, he is, and a talented son of a bitch, dude.
I tell him I hate him all the time because he's so fucking good.
It's crazy, man. I've never met a kid that can play that many things that well, you know.
Yeah, he's an anomaly, most definitely, and I'm thankful to have met him and be in his world and vice versa. You know, I know he's in our world, but yeah, it's a strange time. I think it's all going to pass. I think there's a lot of fear in the world. People are. I mean, 58 years old, I've never witnessed anything like this where the entire globe is affected by this similar type of a thing, where they shut businesses down, the economy starts getting all jacked up. I've never seen anything like it. Now, you know, SARS, what's the other one that was
Ebola was bad. H1N1 was bad.
Those are scary, man, when you start hearing about like Ebola and AIDS, and I started going, well, you know, okay, I mean, it seems like these things are affecting certain groups, certain areas. I'm not in these groups, in these areas. I'm not traveling to Africa, you know, but you just hear about, you know, how it just devastates so many families and lives, and it's real. But when this thing hit, you know, I wasn't scared, but I figured the day that they tell you to stay indoors because it's in the air, that's when you have to really worry, and you start taping up your doors and windows, and we're wearing actual like 3M respirators with organic filters and Tyvek suits. But yeah, I think this was just, again, it's a lot of people are worried about their freedoms and what we've had to give up. But I think what this is something that could have gotten out of control and taxed our medical system and hospitals and frontline, you know, first responders. And that's really where a lot of this, I think, is the issue, is that, sure, you know, it's not killing everybody. It's not everybody's getting it. The numbers are great. We've flattened the curve, you know, but I think it's just, if they didn't do what they did, it could have gotten really nutty, and there wouldn't have been enough workers to like take care of the sick. And it would have been like a Monty Python, you know, bring out your dead, and a guy with a wheelbarrow. But, you know, my opinion, to each his own on their beliefs. If you want to wear masks or don't wear masks or still go licking door handles, I don't know. I just think it's, you know, at 58, I'm not 18, and I'm sure my immune system's been through some shit, but I just don't want to, I don't want to be the, you know, the first one to be
well,
like,
you don't want to be the first one dead from being ignorant, you know. I just think that what this whole thing, if anyone is learning anything from this, it's how fragile our whole entire system is, dude. Our system is absolutely, you have people that, and you're seeing it right now, most of the working people in this country cannot survive 3 months without work. They cannot survive.
Correct.
Yet you have billionaires. We have 20 of the most rich people on earth living in this country that have more money than you could ever possibly imagine spending. Yet the majority of us cannot last 3 months without work or pay or benefits or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just, and if the government gives a shit, which I will be shocked if that's the case, you know, learns anything, it's going to be how bad they have like completely twisted the system into a knot, you know. Will they change it? No. Will they probably use this to gain more control over us and to tighten restrictions and get us where we want? Now, I'm not saying it's the proverbial they or the Illuminati, but I really think that this is a thing that happened that people are gonna make money off of, because there's people in power that are allowed to make money off shit like this. You know what I mean? And if we don't wake up and realize how fragile this whole entire place is, not only America, but just the whole fucking world, you know, like, we deserve it. We deserve all this if that's the case. You know what I mean? If we're not willing to stand up and fight for what we want, I mean, people better come out of this fired up, dude. You know what I mean? Like, first of all, hopefully you come out with a big, huge dose of gratitude on, you know, seeing how lucky we really were, because this is another thing too, is that it is devastating for certain areas. New York's devastating. You know, I talked to my buddy Craig on this, that, you know, the guy went there to burn bodies to catch up on the backlog, you know, but this is a very light, small dose of what Mother Nature could dish out to us. You know what I mean? And we better really start getting our shit together. I think in the next 10 years, man, you know, if we don't really start shifting our priorities, like in a worldwide sense, to helping people and helping each other, this shit's gonna keep happening, and it's gonna turn into a nightmare, you know?
Yeah, I think there's always greed. I think, you know, I tried to think of this too in a sense of business, that, you know, if this, not, and again, not conspiracy theorists, but to generate something, release it, create crazy pandemics, you know, nobody really gained anything out of the, like you say, the working force, like you and I. Industries were shut down. People didn't have savings. People were feeling this. This is something that, you know, just because of our system, people aren't making a fair wage. People can't save money. They're living check to check. They're running 2 and 3 jobs. You know, there's so many elements that make up this thing. But I kept trying to understand, you know, did somebody make money in oil? No, dude, there's an abundance of oil, and fucking gas out on the avenues like $2.50. And a friend of mine was going across country driving a moving truck. He was in Oklahoma, and it was $1.40.
Wow. Yeah.
So, you know, looking at, okay, so it's not an oil thing, and I'm thinking, is it stock markets? Man, the stocks have really been hit. And I think, okay, so what's really operating right now? You got trucking, you know, delivering supplies. You've got food chains, you know, the ranches for the, you know, the meat. You got all these things that are just sustainable items that people need. You know, you still got your farm working, you know, so the food supply. I'm like, and it's not like, okay, every market doubled everything, so these guys fucked us. And it just goes back to, like you say, you just have to be compassionate to your neighbors, those around you. It can't always just be about you and mine. You know, it's kind of like we have to look out for each other. And again, wake up, like you say, and realize, you know, be prepared for something like this, because they've always talked about it. And you know, it's a shame that a lot of people are going to lose their businesses, homes, livelihoods out of this.
Family members.
I was really lucky because I had my teeth done right before, so you know, that's how I survived. And I was just going, oh my God, well, I had all these plans to use that money, but you know, I guess staying alive and paying the mortgage is what's important. But yeah, again, I think a lot of people are scared. It's something that we're not accustomed to. We've never been through. It's a scary time, but we're going to get through it. It's going to get better. I think everything's going to operate differently. Like we were talking about restaurants, you know, in Ventura, they're going to shut down from Fur to Figueroa. They will allow the restaurants to bring their tables out into the streets and the sidewalks to allow more space, because these poor guys were being told by the regulations of, like, if you're going to open, you can only have 30% of your customers. Well, these restaurants are barely surviving with.
Yeah, good luck running a business on 30% of your existing clientele, dude, you know?
So it's a really strange thing, really strange. But
yeah, it's a trip. I mean, so, and then I wanted to touch on like what you do is I had no idea what you did for work until you told me, you know, the last few times, but you do something that's kind of wild, you know, and you've been out of work for months at this point, but are you cool with telling people what you do for work and stuff?
Yeah, I work in the motion.
How it's like affected that whole industry?
Yeah, I work in the motion picture industry, and I do set decorating, and I've done it for 28 years. And I've been through a writer's strike, which lasted 160 days, and that put me into a financial spin. I didn't have a big savings. I had a huge mortgage at the time, living beyond my means, and charged up every credit card I could get my hands on. And it probably took about 10 years to get out from under that. And
Wow.
just within the last 5 years, been able to go, you know, we can go travel with the band. We can go do these things and go visit, and, you know, little luxuries. But I'm waiting to hear when they're going to open up the studios again. I mean, you can only do reruns so long, and now with all the streaming platforms and the internet TV, and it's not what it used to be, where you had television and you had feature film. Now there's all these others, and they all need a place to film, and if the counties aren't going to release filming permits, so they're trying to work it out right now. And hopefully, I'm hoping in another month we'll start hearing about slowly opening the doors to the stages. But yeah, it's a fun industry, but it most definitely, I got shut down.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I just, you know, that whole industry, you know, what you think about when you think of the movie industry, and the thing is the fucking actors, you know what I mean? It's like, and everyone goes, fuck them, you know what I mean? Because they're rich, and they're, you know, you got these morons from their mansions telling everyone to stay safe at home. It's like they got people going out to get them groceries, and they're in their pools, and go fuck yourself, you know. But what you don't really remember is that there's 200 plus of you out on a crew. I mean, on any set, any given day, making a living off of that production, you know what I mean? And it's just like, it's, you know, it's so funny because everyone's so quick to be like, fuck those guys. But then you realize there's a full industry behind that of normal fucking people that have cool, interesting backgrounds, that do really good work. I mean, it takes a lot of work to make a set look cool, you know what I mean? Or even do anything, you know, a stunt man, a fucking camera guy, a grip, a whatever, you know, there's a huge industry behind that. So I always remember, like, when you know, right before I start talking shit, that, you know, behind every famous actor that might be a fucking butthole, you know, there's 200 people that are working their ass off to make that guy look good, or that chick look good, you know?
Well, that's what a lot of this is about, is how they can reopen and keep the actors safe, because basically the end product is about the actors. It's about their talent, about the writers that made this actor fit into this character. And that's what it's really about. And our industry, we do have a lot of luxuries, but now a lot of that's going to change, from catering of food to the craft service. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of craftspeople it takes to make a production, from the set builders, the painters, grip, set lighting, set decoration, you know, everybody. There's so many people involved. And if the actors fall sick, we don't work. You know, they try to reroute the schedules to other scenes, but I get it. And I think the actors are really worried about how they can come back and be safe, that some dirty punk like me, you know, running through the set, bringing in a sofa, or hey, nice to see you today. You know,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, and you know, it's gonna come back, and that's what, like, me and my wife were talking today. It was like, you know, because she's obviously she's a mom. We got 3 kids. You know, my mom has cancer. There's a lot of high risk around us. You know, especially our kids being little germ, you know, little dirt bags. You know, they're just so gross. They're just so gross. You know, you know, I was telling her today, you know, with Ventura recently, like, starting to come open and stuff, it's like we are gonna have to go back to normal, you know, not, or whatever. I'm not gonna new normal, but we're gonna have to get back to life again, man, and that's gonna be taking some risks and going out and seeing people, because, you know, there's 2 ways to get past this, as far as I'm concerned. It's mass testing, which isn't happening. It doesn't look like it's gonna happen anytime soon, or herd immunity. And, you know, and I'm not saying I want people to get out there and get sick, but you have to have people be immune to this shit and everything else going around. By us staying in our houses and hiding like little rabbits, you know, you're ruining your own immune system. You're ruining everyone else around you's immune system. You know what I mean? Like, you have to have some sort of limited exposure to stuff in order to have a healthy community, you know? And I think it's gonna, you know, there's responsible. You could argue about it all day back and forth on what's a responsible way to do it. But the fact is that Ventura County was the first county, I think, in California to have their basically second phase of 2, put into effect because our numbers are looking good, and it's like, well, and I've been raised and never trusted government. So it's like, what am I, I'm for the government, I'm against it, I'm arguing for it, I'm arguing against it. I flip-flop daily, but we have to get back to normal at some point, dude. And you have to just, use your head and just.
Part of our problem is we're not self-governing, that if we could, that we wouldn't need a government. But that's the problem. People can barely be friendly to their neighbor if they need assistance. It's a humbling thing when you realize people will reach out to help and offer help from over your fence or coming around to your door. So, I mean, there's a lot of hopefully people realizing that, this isn't about holding everybody down. This isn't, we have choices. We can do what we want. I see a lot of people doing whatever the fuck they want, being indignant. I went to the bank the other day, which I don't do that much, but I stood on my little 6-foot mark. Hey, everybody had a mask. You're like, fine. How do you know I don't have TB? How do you know I don't have, some other aerial shit that as I speak, I'm going to give it to you. So I'm going to be responsible to not be a dick. But, to see a guy in there all indignant, all yoked out, no mask, and like, I'm just kind of, okay, cool, man, to each his own.
Yeah.
I hope you don't get sick. I hope you don't like later regret being this indignant big dick, but I think there's, everybody's going to have a new way of trying to congregate. And so I really wonder about the bars. I know they're worried about restaurants. I just think bars are going to really get hit because you cannot, in Ventura, the bars we have are not, like Winchester's. Okay, you got a lot of room, but the San Souci doesn't have a lot of room. The Ventiki doesn't have a lot of room. The Beach Club doesn't have, I go down the list of the Star Lounge. Growing up here, I can name them all, but bars, that's part of the fun, is the like close proximity, kind of squeezing through, to get a beer. But I don't know. I think it's going to all kind of have to be reinvented in a way. Music, music's going to be another thing. Just the venues, how are they going to do it? I could see the Ventura Theater. There's enough area to spread people out, but yeah, like the bar scene. Greater minds than ours, I'm sure, trying to work on all the big picture. It's not.
Oh, I doubt there's greater minds than ours thinking about it. They're just not. Like I said, people are, like you said, people are going to do exactly what they want, and like every good thing, you will absolutely 6 months from now or whatever it is, everyone will be acting as if it never happened. You know what I mean? Like, I think it, as hard as we are hit, I mean, I think it'll stay in everyone's craw a little bit, but I guarantee within a year, it's going to be like as if it never happened. You know what I mean? At least in people's attitudes, unless it's still ravaging the country, which, fuck it, please, I hope not. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
I actually wanted to bring up music and stuff. So, I mean, I know that you guys had stuff planned for Europe and all kinds of stuff. So everything's just being pushed off and on hold essentially till 2022 now at this point? What are you guys thinking about?
At this point, we're hearing our promoter in Tokyo, he wants us to come in September after the Olympics because no venues are open during the Olympics. Right now, he said it's a ghost town in Tokyo all throughout all of the country. And no bars, nothing. They're just keeping it all super quiet. I guess they even have almost like a curfew that if they see you out on the streets, like you can get arrested. So what he told us is if we can plan for September 2021, we will be there right after the Olympics when all the venues open. And, people are going to go nuts, as they will here, LA, anywhere in the United States, anywhere in wherever, Italy, any country. They've all been on this lockdown. So we're hoping to get back to Japan next year. Punk Rock Bowling, I know we'll be back on that. They're going to have to rebook the venue and get that steam again. Because, this year we were really on a roll with me doing Dr. No and Stalag. We had multiple gigs. We had so much steam that literally I'm, you know, it's like it's like knowing you're going to the Super Bowl and your team loses by a point. You're like, no.
Oh, dude, I mean, yeah, because you guys, there was a full Nardcore like lineup, right? I mean, like
We
for finally 1 year at Punk Rock Bowling, Nardcore was going to have its big, huge place, you know, and it's like, of course, brah, the land of no toilets down, you know.
Now that is a true Nard curse.
It is, yeah, totally, man. It absolutely is. So, and then so you've been playing punk rock I was thinking about this the other day, you know what I mean? And obviously you got into playing music because you just loved playing music, I would assume. I mean, how did you end up getting into playing music? I mean, in the beginning, back in the early 80s.
My brother, I blame him because he was into acid rock and back then they didn't call it metal, it was hard rock. But he took me to my first gig. I was 11, and he took me to the Forum in Los Angeles, and I got to see Grand Funk Railroad and Black Sabbath.
Nice.
At 11, so for 3 days my ears are ringing, and I'm all, is this normal? But that was my real introduction to that kind of music. But I did grow up with parental influences with jazz and blues and R&B. So I've had a pretty rounded musical influence growing up. I had access to a drum set at about the 11, 12, 13-year-old age. My brother had one. But when I hit the drums and the cymbals, I thought, God, that's fucking noisy and annoying. So you cut to junior high where I had to have a band class, and I took up a woodwind, which was really odd. But I played sax, you know, and did a little Kenny G, sexy sax. And after junior high, it never went anywhere. So cut to 1978. I graduated in 80 in high school. I know I'm an old fucker.
I was -2, by the way.
Yeah, -2. A good friend of mine, Pete Ballmer, he was my knowledge of all things metal and black metal. So he introduced me to like Venom and Motorhead and King Diamond. And, you know, I went all to the Metallica, all that stuff. So through him, I was living in the condos over by what's Kohl's now. There was a drive-in theater there. And my buddies all, you know, Pete goes, let's buy a drum set. Because I always had a job. I've been working since I was 14 at swap meets and carnivals with my dad. And I'm all, yeah. And like, you know, like I really knew what I was talking about. I remember buying my first drum set. God, if I had it now, it'd be worth a mint. But we bought it, and it had like those hydraulic Evans heads that had the oil in them. So when you hit them, they were just horrible sounding.
Yeah.
I'm going, this does not sound like, you know, fucking this person or that person or this band. And I'm like, they just sound like shit. So we just played them that way. But he actually played the drums more than me in my bedroom in the condo. And that was 1978. Then, you know, of course, Pete was turning me on to other kind of like the Robert Fripp and Brian Eno weird craft work stuff. And then I hooked up with some friends in Ventura that same thing. They're like, oh, there are these clubs in LA and there's this great music going on. I'm like, oh, cool. Cut to, God damn it. I went to the old Starwood way back in the day with, not Joey Pena. What's his brother's name? I'm drawing a blank. Art Pena. Art Pena goes, hey, dude, let's go to Hollywood to one of these punk shows. And I'm like, oh, I've been hearing about them. You know, and I hadn't really even listened to it on a radio or, you know, cassette or whatever. So he took me to go see the Runaways. That was my first show in Hollywood.
Wow.
You know, like, I want to say like 1980. And I was like, wow, an all-girl band. And they were like, they're rock, but they're kind of punky, you know? And then, you know, a few months went by and he goes, oh, there's another gig at the Whiskey. It's Plasmatics. And I'm all, what? So I got to see Wendy O. Williams come out with the tape and the whipped cream that, you know, melts off, and stage show with a shotgun, dropping set lights and sawing guitar. I mean, I witnessed it in the old one. So that was really like Art Pena gave me my first taste of punk blood. And always give him the credit because, like, if he hadn't have taken me, it would have been God knows how many more years later before I started hearing this stuff. But from there, then I started hanging out with the Oxnard people because he had connections, and he's all, hey, come over to this party where I met the Aggression guys. And then, you know, you hear about Black Flag, you hear about Circle Jerks and Adolescents. And you go, hey, you just, the list, basic, you know, old staple of punk. So as the flyers were making it back to Ventura from the people going to the gigs in Hollywood, you'd see it and you're like, fuck, we're going to that. And so that just kind of parlayed everything into more exposure. Gun Club, Mau Mau's, Christian Death, you know, you just go down the list. And as far as getting into the bands, for me, I had a band. My first one was called White Trash. And we were just doing covers. We played everything that was out, you know, from Adolescents, Circle Jerks, Black Flag, you name it. We were just doing covers. And we would play around Ventura in backyards. And we even, I don't know if there's any limit to the the statute of limitations for being legally held responsible. But
no.
we go to Pierpont to like a house that was for sale and nobody was in it. We'd go around the back and get into a window and turn the lights on, and we'd have a house party and start like telling people, and you know,
hell yeah, man. Yeah, as long as you didn't murder someone, I think you're okay.
We were just trespassing.
Just general mayhem, you know. Yeah, general mayhem doesn't count 20, 30, 40, 50 years later.
So that was one of my first bands, White Trash. And then going to Oxnard a little more because people were talking about this band, Dr. No, Aggression. Stalag 13 I hadn't heard much about yet. I feel like Aggression, the Beer Guts, God, I'm trying to remember all the old bands. It's been so long. You know, bands from Carpinteria. Hadn't really heard much about Santa
Carpinteria? I had never heard that there was bands from Carpinteria.
Well, there was the one that was the Rotters. Weren't they from Carpinteria?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I want to say they were like the one from Carpinteria. I want to say it was the Rotters, something like that. But then that, you know, hanging around the Oxnard folks, then you start hearing about more and more parties, and nobody had made it to Hollywood yet. Nobody was playing gigs in LA that I can recall.
Was the localism thing going on back then? Like, you know, the Southers and, you know, was that pretty strong? Because like there were for a long time, they wouldn't meet, right? I mean, because in the surf culture here, for anyone that's not from here listening, you know, the surf cultures here are very, very staunch on their teams. You know, there's certain areas of Ventura and Oxnard that do not fuck with LA, dude, and LA does not fuck with them, you know, and it was like that for a very long time. So was that going on back then even? Yeah,
junior high school, I remember hearing about it because I went to Cabrillo, which was a beach school, went to Ventura High. I didn't go to Deanne's. I didn't go to Buena, which were the jock schools. So I hung out with the surfers and the skateboarders. And so I'd hear all about it. And they would go down to like the different campgrounds, and people would be asleep and they'd steal their food and their surfboards. But also at the beach, like with Silver Strand, yes, like you didn't go into Silver Strand just to go look at the beach with a surfboard on your car. But I feel like Ventura had the same thing, say Pierpont, you know, like you didn't hear about people at Pierpont to surf. But localism was around. You know, I never messed with surfing until probably, I would say 20 years ago. So,
but I feel like that attitude kind of transferred into punk rock a little bit too, because it took a long time for Oxnard and LA to kind of mesh together, as far as I understand, you know?
Yeah, and you're right. Most of the people in the bands I played with once I got over into Aggression and Stalag, they were surfers. You know, they surfed. Ron, I don't believe surfed. I think John Morris, living in Oxnard Shores, I believe he surfed. Blake, of course, the Cruises were surfers. Dave Casillas, not so much, but
he's a professional.
Absolutely. The mesh of like the Southers and that whole localism thing, you know, it played a part. I mean, look at Aggression. You know, this beach is for locals only. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it obviously is part of the culture, you know. But yeah, it's such a trip because it's so hilarious that like you would meet people, you know, that brag about the LA early LA punk scene and shit like that. And you're like, yeah, dude, but Oxnard was killing it back then too, you know? And they're like, oh, I don't know nothing about that. It's like, dude, it's 50 miles away. And we might have fucking got you on the early times, dude. You know what I mean? Like, there's definitely some Oxnard bands that were getting busy, like right at the same time, if not maybe a little earlier than some of those, you know, official first punk LA bands, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, LA was on fire when we'd make our journeys down there. We were going to dance clubs. And these were like, they were new wave clubs, but they'd play punk. And so for us, we'd sit through all the like Turnin' Japanese and the Knack and you know, that type stuff. But all of a sudden you hear Public Image come on, and we're like, fuck yeah. And we'd get out there and just do our thing on the floor. And we were wearing like kilts and like engineer boots with our pants tucked in and a million dog chains around our ankles. I mean, we had that weird, the circle jerk, you know, image. That was us, the kind of LA emulation. Yeah. And it took a while before we got accepted, you know, any of the bands from Oxnard in Hollywood. I can remember sending cassettes to the Cafe de Grande and to all the clubs and the Ukrainian Cultural Center and all the Florentine and all these people. Anybody doing shows, you know, we'd send cassettes, just, you know, let us in. And it took a while. Then eventually it happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder, because I wanted to know too, like, I mean, obviously you've had such a long career, you got 1,000 amazing tour stories and stuff, which I want to get a good one from you before we get off and all that. But I wanted to, you know, one thing that I personally like am interested in is because you have this long music career, right? You know, playing, touring, just grinding it out for the love of music, right? You're not making really any money doing this. And at a certain point, we all tend to walk away and move on with our lives for a little bit. But you're in the last 10, 15 years have been really like, I mean, how cool is it for you to be able to come back and revisit these songs and restart these bands and have people give a shit? You know what I mean? Like, that's something that I think about every once in a while, not like legacy or any of that, but you know, I would love to be able to revisit stuff that I did when I was in my 20s and, you know, as a 50-something-year-old man and have people appreciate it. Like, that's got to feel pretty cool. Like, how has the last, like, you raised kids, you've gotten married, you've had houses and lost houses and all this stuff, but like, how has it been in the last like 15 plus years, like playing, you know? Does it feel the same as it did, or what's the difference, you know?
I'm really thankful, very thankful and appreciative of the fans and the band members that I played with, that they didn't go, you know, you're just an old man, or, you know what I mean? I think it's a really special thing, and it is way different because when I was, I think, I feel like when I got into Aggression, I was about 20, which was about 1981 or 82, because that's when the BYO, Someone Got Their Head Kicked In album came out. We did the tour, and I did that podcast with Zach, and I was off by about a year or two on the dates, which, you know, I hadn't had to think about all this in many years until I try to timeline it. I had friends go, dude, you're off. And I'm okay, fine, whatever, fuck off.
Year or whatever, dude. I mean, and that's another thing too I want to mention, that 185 South podcast. If you want a real good chronological history of Larry and any of the Oxnard stuff, listen to those guys. You know what I mean? Those Zach's really killing it with that stuff, dude. So.
Well, and that's the thing. They know because they're a little bit fresher in the minds. They haven't had what I've gone through.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I really think it's special. And in the last probably 15, 16, I'm going to really take it to about 20 years. I was under a rock for quite a while. After the Dr. No, Wreckage and Flesh, the metal era, which was 88, 89, I did a tour with them. I just had a daughter. And I came home and I hung it up. You know, I cut all the hair off. I got a career in the motion picture industry and became the husband, the father, the responsible provider. And I really kind of just did what other members of other bands I'm aware of did the same. And it took Eric Andres, Dave Casillas, Joey Wolf to say, hey, man, we got this band. We need a drummer. And I'm like, oh, man, you know how long it's been since I played? And they go, come on, and we're just doing covers. So I'm like, well, I've done that, you know. And we called ourselves the Nardcore All-Stars, and it was the best thing that could happen because it got me back into learning my chops again, not being afraid to play. And to show where I was for a number of years, when Mark Hickey had died, I was over at the Sans Souci, unaware that they were having a big thing at the theater. And his brother, Mike, came over and goes, dude, you got to come over and play some songs. I was terrified to get behind the drums. And you got to think, you know, I was with them a couple of years, did a tour, and it's not hard music, but I was terrified to go over and be a fool and not know it.
Oh,
And
dude, it's our worst nightmare. You know, all the years I've been playing music, every time I get on stage, I go, I'm gonna forget every single song and every single lyric. You know what I mean? It's like I still get nervous. You know what I mean?
so, I mean, long story short, basically those guys got me out from under the rock. I started playing with them. We started playing quite a bit, to the point where there was a benefit for Brandon's mom. She was stuck in South America. And we did a benefit at the old Roadhouse there in Oxnard, right off the freeway, which is all gone now. And Big Bob was there with his version of Aggression. Henry was alive. And they had a drummer, and I don't remember who was singing. I think Drew. And Bob goes, hey, man, I haven't seen you in a while. You want to play some songs? I'm like, okay, you know, suck it up, Cookie. Put on your big boy pants. You can do this. He gave me a CD. I went out in the car and listened to a few songs. I got behind the drums and played with them at this thing, and both Henry and Bob looked at me and they go, motherfuck, dude, because I play with a fire always. I rarely am a just going through the motions guy. And if you've watched me play, I'm playing to break brass and chop wood, because I think if you can put that kind of energy into the playing, it translates out to the crowd.
Absolutely, it does.
Because I watch a lot of very talented drummers that can move around the drums and are very prolific, but there's no emphasis and no attack, and I get bored. So they were stoked. They said, you want to do some shows? So I, at that time, kind of pulled out of the All-Stars, played with Aggression for a while till Henry passed. Mm-hmm. And then Jess Leedy came in, and we kept it going for quite a while. And it was really becoming tough for me because it just wasn't the same. And, you know, there's always something coming along, you know, you want to do this, you want to do that, another band or whatever. Like you said, 1,600 bands. I was probably on 700 at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
That's been many years ago. But yeah, I'm just very fortunate. I've always kind of played a little. It seems like Stalag in 2003, I believe, is when Dr. Strange re-released us. They did a remastering, added some other tracks to the album. They got in touch with Eben at Thrasher magazine. He gave us a full half-page, you know, big promo, the re-release, and I was like, oh my God, man, you know, this is so awesome. And we went out for a little mini tour all the way up to Seattle, Washington with Dr. No. And that was another kind of eye-opener about 2003. And, you know, so of course I'm in and out of that band for a while. But Stalag's really been the one I've been with the longest, you know, out of all these.
And you guys have been killing it, man. I mean, it's so cool to see you guys every time. My
feeling is so, it's so different than when I was younger. Because when I was younger, it's about who we were. We're on stage, you're not. We have an album, you don't. You know, which is really kind of fucking pompous and it's stupid. But
that's a 20-year-old's mentality, bro. I mean, you know what I mean?
You know, back in the day, if you weren't headlining, fuck off. And so when we knew we were the headliner and somebody said we're playing above you, we'd fight. Good example, Stalag was playing in Santa Barbara, and this is about 86, right when we were starting to fall into the metal, which I'll touch on that.
Yeah.
And we're playing with Agent Orange, and somebody in our band didn't get there in time, and Agent Orange starts setting up. And we said, you better move your fucking drums, man, or we're going to like beat your asses and send you back to Orange County bloody. And they were like, and we're like, dude, this is real. We're supposed to headline or whatever the deal was. And it seems weird that like Stalag 13 would headline over Agent Orange. But back then, there's plenty of times where we would play above bands that now are like the big names, and
Hmm.
it's just because it's what it was. It was a thing to be in a position on that bill. Now I'd rather play. I don't want to open. I want to play in the middle when the crowd is hot, they're fired
Hmm.
up, and then split, because when you play headlining now, people are tired. You know, especially if you're playing with my group, they're tired by 10, 11. If you're playing at 1 or 2, there ain't nobody
Oh, it's
there.
a wrap, dude. Not one part of me ever wants to go on at 12 a.m. You know what I mean? I start
Yeah,
crying, but and such a cool thing about punk rock too, is that like it took 30 fucking years for people to really respect it. I mean, it took a whole entire generation of people to love it the whole time, to really, like, when you saw, especially when you saw like Flag going out, and Off, and all, the Black Flag reunions, and every other, and I mean, especially you guys, Dr. No coming back, all these, you're starting to see these bands resurface 30 years later, and like people are like, fuck yeah, because it really does awaken a part of your childhood that you completely missed. I mean, every guy, your age has that part where it's like, you have some kids, you settle down, you do what you got to do, get them raised, and then the kids get out of the house, and now you're like just all twiddling your thumbs like, fuck, I think I could do this again. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's so cool that the response is, it's like hard for me to imagine ska's never going to make a huge comeback. You know what I mean? But like punk rock, like that dirty, grimy element, and especially like when you have bad politics like this, you know what I mean? Like bad politics makes great fucking punk rock. It creates anxiety, it creates tension, it creates turmoil, which people want to get it out. You know what I mean? And I just love that. I love that and really, it's so selfish that I love it, because it's really like, for me, you know what I mean? It shows me that, I was a guy that had to walk away from a lot, to do what I needed to do for my family. And now I'm just starting to kind of pop my head up again and resurface and play, and I just love that there's like such a huge outpouring and response to like all the stuff that the Nardcore guys have been doing, and and anyone like that's been really grinding for the last 30, 40 years. The Raft got a chance to play with Blue Cheer right before. It was us, Blue Cheer, Annihilation Time, and this band called El Barbero. Right? You got a Cheer record. There you go. Yeah, yeah, that's part of the thing. And the
I got the
craziest,
post.
hell yeah, the craziest thing about that show was talking to Dickie. And he goes, dude, we've been fucking playing for 42 years. And you're like, holy shit. I mean, this dude started playing when the Rolling Stones started playing. But this guy's in a
Yeah,
van. This guy's been touring in a fucking van for 42 fucking years. Didn't give a fuck. You know what I mean? And smoked a giant joint, went on and completely shredded the place. I mean, shredded it. Did a 30-minute Jimi Hendrix medley, which I was like, what? What? Like, killed some Blue Cheer songs, 30-minute Hendrix medley in the middle, and then ended with, Summertime Blues and the jams, some of the jams. And like, this motherfucker has been doing it for 42 fucking years and just is as happy as a pig and shit. Died like 6 months later. You know what I mean? Like, that shit's so cool when you see someone that just doesn't have the quit in them. You know what I mean? It's awesome. I just, and to be able to get to know you in the last 10 years and see that stuff it continues. You know what I mean? Like, it never leaves you. I take those DIY ethics and all that shit into every part of my life, to try to help myself and help my family and help my friends. I really believe all high tides raise all ships, and the more that we share the struggles and the trials and the tribulations and the good times with, the better we'll all be eventually. And like, you've been such a huge learning asset for me to see, like, fuck, it's still possible to enjoy your late 50s into your 60s, because the industry I work in and the industry that you work in, that it breeds bad people, not like, just angry, bitter. You know what I mean? When you do something you don't want to do for 40 years, you're fucking bummed. You know what I mean? By the end of it. So it's just awesome to see that stuff.
yeah, it means a lot. I appreciate it. For me, what happened eventually was when I started playing again a lot more, is I started watching the crowds, and it's never been about money. I mean, just to really clarify, and I think I did this on Zach's show too, is that I've never received a penny from any album I've ever recorded, never asked for any money. It's not that I got screwed. I just always believed in the level we were performing at, and the people behind us were upstart companies, as you know, the Upstart Records Stalag 13 was on. And to see the $50, $75, $500, $300, whatever the small amount, we're not talking thousands, you know, we're talking triple digits, but that's like, could be with a decimal point after the first number. I believe in that money going back into their system to prolong, if they are starving. I mean, you know, good example is Dr. Strange Records. They took us under their wing, and for many years I'd get these reportings, you know, very professional. I'd see what the album did. We're like the Sex Pistols, one album almost 40 years later, and you know, I got to see how it was selling, and I just would tell them, hey, hold on to it, you know, keep that money. I have a regular career, I have a, you know, I know what life's about. I'm not living on it. And to me, over the years, I started realizing it's not about the money. Even when we play and we do shows where they pay us this astronomical amount of money, and I kind of go, really? Like, all right, you know, I mean, we didn't even like argue. We didn't come up with this number, that they just, this is what we can pay. And I go, cool. You know, I don't want to have to pay for gas or food when I go.
Oh, definitely, man.
So, you know, if it's a wash, it's good. But the point is that I am noticing my age have had kids, those guys have had kids, and now I'm playing for, you know, your civil conflicts, your 3-day Holocaust, your, you know, and I call them kids because I could be their dad, and they're fucking awesome. And as I've always said for the last probably 35 years, Oxnard and punk has never died in Oxnard. It never went away. As long as I can, you know, that's why I have these huge windows where your generation of music, the Joe Rivas, all, you know, the In Control, Annihilation Time. I mean, I know it was happening, but I never got a chance to go experience it. And very thankful that they never just fucking threw the towel in and said, you know, punk's dead, now we're into disco, or, you know, whatever, Morrissey. It just continued on another level. And so now I'm so thankful that the pirate punks and all these kids that are you know, the Hong Kong shows, they did 2 shows for us, the going away show to Japan and the return show. The place was completely off the hook, reminded me of Hollywood in the 80s, reminded me of the best house parties. Those guys know how to fucking have a good time and get the people there. And you know, they do a donation thing, and they gave us a couple bucks at the end of the night. And I said, I'm happy to do it for free. If when we agree to do it, you just go, hey, it's donations. So you could make a couple, or you could, you know, walk away with some free drinks. And to me, that's what it's about. It's about keeping it in that DIY, not putting yourself above people, because there's always a handful of those acts that have a lot of responsibilities and they live on it. You know, that's their livelihood. This to me is fun. I love bringing pleasure for people to see. I love to talk to people. I'm approachable, which I've always been over the years. And I've always just thought that was something that, you know, because you run into people every so often. You're like, dude, I've been seeing you for the last 40 years. I mean, we were elbow to elbow at this club in Hollywood. But, you know, to have a conversation, they just turn a cheek because you're nobody. And I'm like, you know, I just think it's important to keep that friendly door open, as Oxnard always has amongst all of us. And to this day, I mean, anything we play is just mainly for the kids, because that is who I see a lot of. I mean, definitely a 21 and over club is not going to be the kids, but I mean, like the Hong Kong shows and the community center show that we just did. Yeah, I don't, it doesn't matter. It can be 100 years old or 5 years old. It's about watching them lose their shit when, you know, as in Dr. No, when we come out with Burn and the fucking place wants to rip their clothes off and run through a plate glass window.
100%, man.
Yeah, to me, that's what it's about.
Yeah, and it's honestly it's hard to find a lot of people with that same perspective. You know what I mean? Which makes it so much more unique when you do, because first of all, Ventura and Oxnard has such an incredible, I mean, probably I've been all over the country. You've been all over the world. There's some of the most talented fucking people here, and they're just happy to be playing, making music, having a good time, hanging out with the friends. And it's not about that. It's not about, there's probably 10, 20 bands that could really go full big time out of these couple towns if they really decided to, but it's just not in our DNA. And maybe it's because we're from lazy beach towns, you know what I mean? Maybe it's our general laid back attitude overall for the most part. We're not from a town where everyone's fake and has to try to fucking sell themselves. We just are, but it creates authenticity. It creates like, a real true positive atmosphere, you know what I mean? Like, whereas you can go to a show in LA and from one city to the next city, no bands know each other. They don't like to deal with each other. The promoter won't talk to this guy. And if you did your show here, they're not going to do a show for you over here. And it's just not like that here. You know what I mean? Even though it is a small community, because maybe that's the reason, because there's just no room for a lot of bullshit here. And the people that are like that get weeded out pretty quick. You know what I mean? You do have your handful of people that will pull a fast one on a band or start a label and rip some people off, you know what I mean? But it doesn't last long, you know what I mean? And it gets pointed out, and people generally avoid that person or that group or that band, and they don't get invited to shows and they don't play. If you jump on stage here with an attitude 99% of the time, and I'm guilty of having an attitude myself when people jump on my stage, but I don't come up there with an attitude of we are better than you. You know what I mean? I come up there because I want to perform for you. I want you to enjoy the songs. I want you to feel what I'm feeling, So it's just so cool to see,
You are the mirror, so if you act a fool, I'm a fool.
Exactly.
But I want to touch on something you said because it's really important. That's something about Oxnard, Ventura, Camarillo, Simi Valley. I mean, not a lot of big acts came out of Simi. Santa Barbara had RKL and a few others. But Oxnard in particular and Ventura, if you think about Stalag 13's style of music, Dr. No, Ill Repute, and Aggression, they're so different, which to me is impressive that nobody tried to be like. Nobody wanted to emulate to fit in. There's such creativeness and originality here. And I said that in a magazine article that we did that I don't think anybody had touched on it. And I said, you have to really stop and go, okay, Stalag 13 has this, not to pigeonhole us, but, of course we were straight edge, but we have a style and it's very consistent and it's easy, it's fun. And then you go to the Ill Repute, which had another kind of a style that I can't even really put my finger on. Then you go to the Aggression, which I feel when I was in the band, it was very surf punk. It was very surf feel. And then when Mark Aber took over, it became harder and more refined, and it's what the band needed. And then you go to Dr. No, and I said, Dr. No's like taking a chainsaw, firing it up, putting the trigger on auto and throwing it in a pit. I mean, it's just... It's like mechanized insanity. So all the big four had their own style without stepping on another, without being like, oh, well, you sound like. Because when we did one tour, and that was that 03 tour, we were in Seattle. And we played at this place, and Nirvana had already moved on. But 5 of the bands we played with all sounded like Nirvana, Mother Love Bone, Soundgarden,
Alice in Chains, whatever, yeah.
I just thought, what happened? What happened here? Because Seattle's not a giant place, but when you have the hit sound, it's kind of like people try to glom on and go that direction. And it might have happened in LA, but not living there. I never sensed that. I sensed LA had, because it is bigger, you had a lot of different sounds. Like Black Flag didn't sound like Circle Jerks, didn't sound like DOA, didn't sound like the Misfits, didn't sound like, and you can just go on and on and on. But when you got to certain genres of music, they had either a glam rock punky thing or they had a death rocky feel.
Then you find that a lot of those bands, they glom together and they play shows together. And every time you go to a show, it's 7 bands of the same thing. But I think you're right. In Ventura and Oxnard, specifically has kept that tradition in the fact that everyone plays with everyone. Like the Rats' last show in Ventura was us, which we were fucking gnarly. Yeah, we're a gnarly band. It was us, Messenger, who is like Seth and Sasha, like it's like a surf rock, almost like Concrete Blonde, and then Catholic Spit. That was our last show, and it was because we love those bands. They're nothing like us, you know what I mean? Like, and that is interesting. That's an interesting show to go to. To go to a show where 17 people have mohawks and you can't tell who's the singer of what band, you know what I mean? And they all have the same speech and they all say the same things and they all play the same fucking thing. It's boring to me, you know what I mean? And it's so weird that Ventura and Oxnard and surrounding, you know, Ventura County has that weird vibe to it where everything meshes, dude. Like, I love to play shows with Sweet Reaper. You know what I mean? I love to, you know what I mean? Tongue will play with, you know, the pirate punks. We don't fit into the pirate punk world, you know, but no one bats an eye, you know, it's crazy. It's just the culture that you guys created essentially, you know?
Yeah, you're right though, with the three bands you just listed, yours and the other two. I love all that. And they were so different to when you said that lineup, I thought, wow, that's a pretty extreme lineup difference
Yeah.
there. And you know, even when I go to like John's band, you know, Detoxy, but what was the other one before that?
They were called Mask, I think.
Matt, yeah. I mean, that band, Detoxy, everything he touches is different, but it's so fucking pleasing to the ears and senses that it's different and it's fun and it's edgy and it's new. And to me, that's, again, it's like, there's a lot of bands in Ventura, and I'm discovering this right now. I don't know if it's proper to call them metal or whatever the new, you know, if your name has roots in the lettering and you can't describe or read it,
we'll call it metal.
I don't know
That's fine.
If it's thrash metal, rock, I don't know. You know, I'm old. So me, I've got like 4 terms for music. Nowadays, they've got all these different breakdowns. But I mean, there's so much just here in Ventura and Oxnard that I'm like blown away, and they're all different. And that to me, it just goes back to like, what is it in the water here that, you know, when you start a band, you don't go, oh, whoa, 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 that riff, man, that sounds like, and we can't do that, you know, or is it's an innate thing that comes out, and that's always been kind of impressing me. And, you know, like a good example is Brilliant Machine with Bill.
Oh yeah, that was a very unique band, dude.
I heard it and I'm like, I fucking hate you guys because I like this. Like, I fucking hate you because the rap is so good, you know?
Yeah.
But that's important to me for my musical tastes because I like a lot of variation. And that was, again, something that even Billy O's brought to the scene, that I could go there because we live 2 blocks away. We could go there any given weekend and there'd be a band, and I'm like, where are these fucking guys from? They got saxophones and they kill it. Oh, they're from like over on Foothill, and I'm like,
yeah, this guy's playing a fucking harp. What? Yeah. And I like it. Why? You know, yeah.
You know, so I mean, Ventura and Oxnard have always had that kind of power to just create new sounds, and you know, that's what's fun. And I mean, as far as me, again, just the love of doing it. To watch people get excited, they still get excited. I think, you know, I threatened to quit about 4 or 5 years ago, and I think my final show, I don't know what it was. I think I just felt like I'd hit the end, and I was going to light everything on fire and destroy it and toss it out into the crowd. Like literally, like a crazy, I'd probably go to jail. The club would have burned down. People probably would have been injured, and I'd, you know, that's my grand.
That's most nights me playing. Honestly, it's.
I something took me out of it. And I said, you know what, I'm having, you know, this is too much fun. This is way too much fun. And I think, too, when Brandon hit me up to do the Dr. No project, I went, okay, I can dig this. And we went to Europe with Dr. No and Stalag. And that was, again, it just kind of relit the fire.
And you're doing double duty, right?
I did every night back to back. Yeah. I basically made a drum head with a vinyl of each band, and I put Velcro tabs, and I put them on the backline set that I was given, and the clubs that had a backline, and I just flip it, but I change shirt, change headband, and people they come up after the second band and go, you just fucking played another animal. But,
Yep.
you know, going to appreciation, like when you're in Europe, you don't realize that Oxnard has been around the world. And we were in Italy and Croatia, and people came up with things to sign. And I thought, I expected it totally like nobody knows who the fuck we are. We're just Americans playing punk rock. And there were so many people that knew about Nardcore. And to me, I think, well, if you didn't have the invention of the internet, it probably would have been a lot longer, you know, but we're out there, you know, Ventura, Oxnard, they want to know what's going on in the, you know, United States. There's an interest. And what we got to see in just Japan, every band we played with in Japan that opened for us, I look at the guys and go, guys, I thought we could ease into this. We got to fucking tighten it down and A game it plus. And they all went, you're really fucking right. I mean, because the Japanese do not fuck around. They were so fucking tight, so fast, so energetic. And literally we brought it, you know, and I can look at videos from the clubs we played. We're playing so fast and so tight. And I think to myself, nobody said we better pick it up tempo wise. It just happens. And all of us being musicians, friends, the love of what we're doing, because we wouldn't have went there if we didn't love what we're doing. We wouldn't have went there if we hated one another. But to go into a situation, it's almost like an Olympics of punk. And to go to the first club and to see who opened up for us and then just look at each other and go, you know what you got to do. And from there, the rest of the 2 weeks, it was like flawless. And there were a couple times where we even said, we're really playing this fast. And we all go, it's fine.
Yeah.
That's
the energy, man.
It's not jumbled together, but it's keeping with that same energy that these local groups were playing. So there's something to be said just about that alone, that you have to always kind of keep looking at that bar, because if you get comfortable going under that one where you just go, oh, fine, let me just shimmy under it. You know, I've been doing this for 38 years. You can become complacent.
Oh, you're going to watch some kid fucking run and pole vault over your bar, you know, and then kick you in the head while they do it. You know what I mean? It's 100%, you know, and it's like funny too, because some people think, you know, they hear, oh, we toured Japan, and it's like, I know what you guys did to get there. You guys played for shows for a whole entire year, and every single fucking dollar went to tickets and hotels, and just to not pay out of your own pockets. You know, you guys all took vacation time to do it. You know what I mean? So it's not like you know, when you hear immediately when someone says, I went to tour in Europe, people think, well, they just, you know, they had everything handed to them. And it's like, dude, if you want to go to a tour and do like what we do on our level, you have to work for a full year before that to even get to the fucking point. You know what I mean? And it's like, you only do that out of love. You do that as a labor of love, and that's it, you know? And like, if you're doing it to make money, I mean, fuck, we might as well, you know, I would have started a James Brown fucking cover band a billion years ago. You know what I mean? Or whatever, you know, it would have been anything else besides punk rock and metal, you know? It's just so, it's so cool, you know?
And you can't choose the path that you and I have, because we spoke about this on our bike ride, that there are those that we know that live in a rehearsal space, or their life is just that, music, and they can take off when they need to, and they can immerse themselves as much as they want and eat top ramen as much as they, you know, their responsibility level is really low. But when you get up in age and you've had, you know, a pretty full life with things and kids and careers, you find a way to do it and still have fun. And it's always a job, you know, it's never always pleasure. I mean, believe me, the first tour I did in Europe was with the Punk Elvis cover band, the GG Elvis. And I had to carry drums down into basements almost every night. My wife helped. And all the gear, because rarely the clubs are up on street level. They're always in these, like, you know, and literally the amount of work that goes into that, you know, there are no roadies, there is no tour bus. I do have to say our connections in Europe and Japan are good, where we're in like the Mercedes Sprinter van, in Japan was like Ryota's own personal like Toyota van that held like 15 people. But you know, those I think are pretty top-notch tours. You know.
Oh yeah, compared to what we've done tours in trucks. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like
with trailers.
I remember having to borrow my mom's PT Cruiser to get to shows every once in a while. You know what I mean? It's like it's crazy, man. But
so it's really something though to see the people around the world. I really want to do Thailand. There's a crazy scene there, and I've reached out to a group through a friend of mine in the studios. He goes down and helps build choppers, and their music scene is nuts. It's called Natterjak, and it's like Natterjak, and they use the Motorhead skull as their logo, and they're it's Thailand, I believe. And yeah, their shows are crazy. Like there's no less than 500 people in an outdoor thing.
wow.
The indoor things are the same. The bands are just spot on. They're all crazy with mohawks. But you know, it's like I keep saying, I've only got a few more years in my industry, and then I can retire hopefully. And then I told my wife I want to go on tour, and she just cracks up. She goes, "Sucker, you fucking tour every year. What are you talking about?"
yeah, exactly. You know, yeah, it's a trip, man. I mean, it's so like I said, it's a blessing, it's a curse, it's a fucking, you know what I mean? It's the best thing I've ever done. It's the worst thing I've ever done at the same time sometimes, you know what I mean? It's just, and that's passion, you know what I mean? That's just how passion goes. It's, you know, when you do something because you love it and because you're compelled to, because you're possessed to, you know what I mean? It just, all the minutia, all the details tend to work themselves out, you know what I mean? Hopefully for the best, but they'll work themselves out regardless, you know what I mean? If that's what you want. But man,
Yeah,
I wanted to say it's been great having you on. I really appreciate it. Where can everyone follow you? Huh?
I was going to say, I was trying to think of a road story.
Oh
and
yeah,
one
give it.
clicked
You
into
got a good chaotic road story from the past or something you want to give us?
I'm just trying to, yeah. This one was pretty funny, that you don't realize when you're in a foreign country how we're so tiny, and you think it's all going to be easy. We were in Germany, and there's Saxony and Bavaria, and one's northern, one's southern. And we're in the the Mercedes van. We don't have a guy driving us. We're driving ourselves with a TomTom for directions. And we get this address, and we go to this address, and we're calling the promoter where it's like 5 p.m. and he goes, "Where are you?" You know, in broken German. And we're like, "We're at 37 Strada something." Yeah. Do you see the venue? I said, "I see a church." "Oh, no church." And I'm like, "Dude, like we're in the fucking, and we're in southern Germany." So he says, "You Bavaria or Saxony?" And we're like, "I think it's Saxony is the southern, Bavaria is the northern." We're like, "Saxony." He goes, "Oh, no. Bavaria, northern." So literally, we drove like 6 more hours into the night through rain. The club was in a basement, and there was probably, I don't know, 300 people in this like bomb shelter thing. They waited for us. The club was giving out free booze. So when we got there, everybody was fucked up. Literally, when we got there, the people were grabbing the gear. They were bringing it in for me. I felt kind of like a rock star for just a moment.
But no, you're just 3 hours late to your own show.
That's not the catch. Halfway there, the van runs out of diesel. So now we're on like a German road in the middle of nowhere, and like Germany is really country if you really know the area, with giant windmills like Palm Springs. So we run out of fuel. We make it off of an exit, and I'm thinking, are these new ones? Do you have to prime them? I'm like, I'll call Mercedes. So I look on the side of the door, and there's a phone number. Yeah, I'm gonna get somebody in English. No, it's all fucking in German. I'm like going, oh my fucking God. And now it's like, still about 2 more hours to go. And I'm thinking, it's 11 o'clock. They're going to cancel it. So I call the promoter. He says, "We come to you." And I'm like, okay, well, all I can see is a Mercedes dealership. And I'm making the best German I can out of the exit and the number. So within a couple more hours, they make it to us. It's now midnight. They bring, it looks like a Rubbermaid little thing you put cleaners in, but it's full of beers. They bring us beers. They bring us diesel. One guy goes back on his own. One of them rides with us so he can get us there without, you know, fucking trying to figure it out. So we finally get back to this place at like 1, 2 in the morning. People are just shit-faced. It's packed. And we proceed to do our thing and just have the best time. But it was just like one of those times where you really realize, you know, the comforts when you're at home and what you can figure out. When you're somewhere else, man, you got to just go with it, you know, and you just can't give up. You just fucking figure it out. And yeah, there's a lot of interesting little road stories where you just go, fuck, man, how did we, you know, never, well, I mean, when we went in 2018 and went into Croatia, we had to go through Slovenia, and that's kind of scary. You know,
Yeah.
they look at you up and down. And when we got into Croatia, you notice there's no police. There's just young Russian kids in Mercedes with lots of gold, and they're like running the town. And you realize, again, you go back to you're a small fish. Just because you're American and you're in a band
means nothing.
You know,
yeah.
Where are your surroundings?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, that's a point where you realize I'm doing this because I love it. You know, but you do, you know what I mean? It's just part of the deal. And that's traveling too, you know what I mean? I've been in so many parts of America. I haven't been out of the country that much touring, but so many parts of America, and you feel like you're in another country, you know what I mean? But man, it's been awesome having you on, dude. Where can people follow you? Where can people
you know,
keep up with everything?
I don't really Facebook, but I am doing a lot of Instagram, and it's larry.white.666. And it'll come up, and, you know, I throw up, I'm making a lot of clocks out of old symbols, little shameless self-promotion. Take an old symbol and I turn it into some crazy ass art. But, you know, I don't have a website. I don't sell anything. You know, when you see me at a show, that's where I'm at.
That's right, man. Yeah, and you obviously Stalag's always busy. There's also rumblings of a new version coming around.
Well, so let's drop this now. In '86, me and Ron took Stalag and wanted to do a metal thing because it was starting to do the crossover thrash, and we actually did some recordings. Those will be released by next year. It will probably be called Stalag 13, but it'll be comparable to the Dr. No Kyle, Dr. No Brandon. So you just have to pay attention to which.
Yeah.
On the flyer or the marquee or where.
You'll definitely be able to tell the difference in the music for sure. You know what I mean?
It will not be, you know, what you're used to.
Yeah.
But it in itself is a very fun idea, and I'm looking forward to it. So keep an eye open for second coming.
Yeah, as soon as we can ever play music again, you know what I mean? You know. Yeah.
Well, thank you again, man. I appreciate it.
Likewise, man. All right, see you, everybody.